You're welcome to the second of this week's Champion Sports Chat podcast specials, where we're looking back on Clare's famous All-Ireland victory of 1995. In episode 1, we heard from the captain, Anthony Daly, and if you haven't heard that one yet, you can check it out on all our social media channels and the usual podcast outlets. This week, though, we are talking to two of the men that became known as Davy's Six-Pack, two of that very mean defence, while the likes of Toohey and Sparrow and Jamesy were doing the damage up front. It was a strong six unit at the back that were holding things together. None more so than the full back line of Michael O'Halloran, Brian Lohan and Frank Lohan, and I'm delighted to say that both Michael and Frank spoke to us this week to reflect on what was that famous summer. We'll start with Michael O'Halloran, who in fact admitted that he doesn't look back on it too often.
Try to avoid the kind of nostalgia thing. I've three lads myself at this stage, and they're 17, 14, 12, so they taught me I was awful. So YouTube is an awful invention, to be honest with you. People expect the 95 thing to be a big thing and legends and all that, but when they see it on YouTube, it brings you back to reality with a bump. So, but look, from time to time, things do obviously come to you, and when you're involved, and probably not a major player without any major performances to look back on, like myself, you nearly find you're probably thinking back more to the privilege of maybe having a front row seat on what went on in terms of, the training, looking at his methods, his ways and means, and that kind of thing. Like, so, as I said, it's funny from time to time. Even I was out there recently, my young fellow was training in Shannon, so I bought the dog for a walk around Shannon, and I found myself at the bottom of Tullyglass Hill as well. Again, like looking up at it and thinking, yeah, Jesus, go running up. The nettles run up and down that 40 times after doing, I don't know, probably the guts of an hour blowing with tones, doing other kind of exercises and training, like, so. I've often said if you saw a fellow making a horse do it, you would probably call the ISPCA. So, it comes at you in funny ways, alright, yeah.
Yeah, you'd no urge that even to run up the hill to see it to sit in the
No, it was too dark, and thankfully there's a few bushes or trees or something have kind of grown across the front there, or at the bottom of it, where we used to take off from. So, no. Could hear one or two voices echoing around the place, right, from various other noises that you might be reminded of, but no, you can move swiftly on.
Very good, yeah. And it's just, as you mentioned, other voices, I'd imagine Tony Constantine's one of them, and I just see in a paper today he kind of mentioned what you said at the start there, that for a lot of people, hurling-wise, 95 probably wasn't the greatest final in the world, but from a Clare point of view, the best one that was ever played. Like, and was that the sense he had, that this was just about getting this done and breaking this duck?
Yeah, well, I think that's the way it went. Certainly, once we got over the Munster humpback, things were, and I think it probably was unusual at the time. I think, but the lads did a good job in bringing us up to Croke Park for a couple of. I think we got at least 2 training sessions before the Galway match, or maybe one before Galway and one after, or something like that. But and again, I think Ger in particular really kind of deflated the whole myth of Croke Park and all that. He really, I've heard Dale always heard him as a sports psychologist, and he absolutely, when you think back, he completely, probably from a sports psychologist playbook, kind of completely debunked the whole thing of there's nothing to fear here. Look at it; it's a pitch. There's 4 white lines around it, etc., etc. And at that stage, he probably had he was obviously a huge figure in all our lives at that stage, and we had won Munster, and he was a bit of a god to Clare people, and within that to some degree with the players as well, that whatever this guy said goes, and and in fairness, I'd say to Mac and Constantine, they would have discussed it obviously, and it would have been one of the again, one of the main messages they wanted to impart. They had that clarity that when we went up there, just a complete, because again, as we've often referred to, the history of Clare teams, unfortunately, was for no good reason, because we always had the players and we always had the hurlers, that we collapsed. And obviously, that's the last thing they wanted was, after doing so well, to win that Munster final in '95. The worst thing would have been to go out and collapse. And again, I suppose, even around that time, if you go back to that time, the footballers went up there and expressed themselves and gave a really good account of themselves. So you wanted to at least, achieve parity with that anyway. And as I said, I think, we were going well at the time. We had a good team and we had the monkey off our back, so we just had to avoid. Once we avoided that whole thing of not performing and collapsing, I'd say deep down he was fairly happy that on our day we could live with anyone in the country at the time. Absolutely. And that's what happened.
When did you first break onto the panel, Mike?
Yeah, I was a complete greenhorn. Like I had no county experience at minor or 21 or anything like that. I came into the back then the league started in the autumn, so he gathered in a training panel, I'd say, in September '94, and I got into that. And you were playing league matches in October back then, and he gave me a start after a few challenge matches or training or whatever. So it was actually on in the Bridge that time. We played Kilkenny in the first round and made my debut at home. So that was October '94.
Right, and was it a shock to the system when you encountered the Loughnane methods? Because, I suppose other lads of the panel would have probably worked with him under Gaynor and maybe had an idea of what was coming.
I was on the 21 panel for a brief period, and I would have known him growing up in the Bridge, because he did great work with Tones. I mean, I can look back, but at the time he would have been our kind of mortal enemy, because he was doing such a good job with Tones, and was beating Bridge teams in underage games and underage finals and that. So we were well aware of him. Even going back to primary school, I remember losing the school's final to one of his Conrays teams, and obviously I would have known and grown up anyway that he was a great player for Clare, so he had that kind of mystique. And as I said, we would have been well aware of him in the Bridge from his exploits at Wolf Tones, and from the bit of time I spent with the Clare 21s, I was convinced, if anyone is going to do something with Clare, it's Loughnane. And I'm not just saying that now. Looked around. If you looked around the county at the time, and if you think back to someone like myself getting the call up to join the Clare senior panel, and you saw that you were joining the Clare senior panel with Gerald Loughnane as manager, and as the months went on, definitely. I would have said it. I didn't think we'd do it in the first year, but I definitely thought we would do something within 2 or 3 years because of Loughnane. I think he was a really good coach and a really good motivator and all that. And I think it was different. See, I know again Dalo has said, well, Jesus, if I'd have lost, and others like him, if I'd have lost the Munster final in '95, that would have been 3 Munster finals lost. Maybe players like him would have given it up or retired, or would have been just disillusioned. It would have been very hard to come back. Whereas, that you have fellas like me then, and maybe the younger guys, the Bakers, Fergal Hegarty's, Franks, who come in. We wouldn't have had that mindset at all. And definitely, I was convinced. From seeing Loughnane in operation with that 22 or 92, 21 team, and what we were doing with him, I definitely thought we were going to do something within definitely a couple of years. I mean, none of us could have predicted. Obviously, you would have been, hoping to give it your best bet in year one. But yeah, I remember, for example, Lohan. I'd been friendly enough with him at the time, and I remember him saying it at Christmas, and Davy Fitz as well, that they were convinced this was it. Them two in particular were convinced that that '95 was going to be Clare's year. And again, they're probably different because they're in between. They wouldn't have had the same years of service of Dalo or Sparrow or lads like that who have been there since the late 80s, and all those tough days, you know, they were there in 93, 94, and fine, you take the blows that came, but they were convinced that with Loughnane and with the way we were going, and that 95 was going to be the year. So yeah, it just shows you a different mix of views and I suppose attitudes to county hurling at that stage. Some of us in year one, others in year 2 and 3, really saying, yeah, now is the time to kick on, and maybe, you know, as I said, the older lads again, hoping against hope that we would make the breakthrough.
Yeah, because one thing that strikes me talking to a lot of that 95 group is that the word belief was so important, like, and that kind of echoes out then when you watch back the games, because there was just a savage ferocity and honesty in what you did, and everybody just really sticking to that cause, like.
Yeah, but again, you go back to you know, I'm sure you follow sport as well, but and that's, you know, in the last couple of decades that we've all come to understand sport. And what is it? It's what did Loughnane do? That all the successful teams do. It's the right Keane thing. It's if you prepare hard enough and you train hard enough. I mean, how many times have you heard that in hurling, Gaelic, soccer, rugby? You train as you play and play as you train, and I think again that's where was just had possessed of something when it came to training. Was the training perfect? Of course it wasn't. When we look back at it now, and the modern coaching methods, a lot of stuff we did was daft, but anyway, it was of its time. And he just had clarity. He just had a singular focus. We had the hurlers. We just had to fucking toughen up, and we had to do things quicker. And things that people maybe forget that he, in fairness, that was the one thing he fucking emphasised even back in '92 with that 21 team, and definitely, you know, that, you know, and he wasn't condemning past teams or anything, but he was just convinced that if there's going to be one thing said about the Gerald Loughnane team, they're going to be able to play at the speed that Munster Championship demanded, and going to be able to do so then with, you know, with his vision of a training session, you know, and they were often 90-minute sessions, and then you had Mike Mack as well backing that up as well, that, you know, we were going to be going as strong in the 65th or 70th minute, whatever it was, as we were in the first 5 minutes. So, you know, it's just a good sports story, like, and just glad that it happened, you know.
Yeah, and just, I suppose, in a final sense, from a community perspective, or, you know, the Clare hurling public in '95 speak of two things, the weather and the hurling. So, I mean, to be inside in the middle of that bubble, was it something that you could look out at and enjoy, or was it Loughnane telling you turn your backs on that now and focus on the sliotar?
Yeah, there was a bit of that in fairness, you know. Certainly after the Munster final, like he famously, a couple of weeks when passed, and or a week or two after, a lot of lads will talk about that, he just, after 5 minutes, 10 minutes of a training session in Cusack Park, he cut it short and brought us into the dressing room, and I think again a lot of people would have referred to that famous night. You know, he started with Dalo and Lohan, and, you know, all the kind of the leaders had a right cut and brought everyone back down to earth. So there was definitely that post '95, but I think we enjoyed it. Like, I mean, the things you're kind of reminded of is that it was a different culture back then as well. So, you know, when we won the Munster finals, where we went on the pitch for at least a week, like, and it was encouraged, you know. It couldn't get enough of it up to Mike Max at the Wednesday or Thursday night, like, to keep the whole thing going, you know, after being around probably around Mid Clare and a bit of East Clare and West Clare, you know, on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday then. But and the other thing I remember as well is back then we had no motorway, so it was coming certainly from the 6 Mile Bridge perspective to go to training. In Ennis, you went through, obviously you knew what the colour and that was around the bridge, but, you know, you went through the market every time, you went through Clare Castle, which was absolutely superb, you know, and Ennis itself, and maybe the odd time you came back down through Quinn, and just to see the colour and the happiness and exactly the weather as well. Like, there was nothing better going back to Lahinch for a dip to, after training or when you had a rest day or whatever, and it was suddenly, and for someone like myself, you're walking along and people are recognising you. I mean, that was completely kind of bonkers, like when you're kind of a private person, and suddenly, because of this involvement with this hurling team, that things have probably changed forever, so I think we did enjoy it, because the place did go mad. And you had, I suppose the other thing you forget as well, you had all the songs. Every time my mother would have been, I was living at home at the time, my mother was a Clare FM fan, so it's like every second or third song was How's It Going Lohan or Gail McDermott's song, or so we made. There were so many of them that we made an album of them at the time. Like, man, even the fellow thought he was Elvis Presley. He had a song at the time, like, so yeah, it was carnival time there. In many ways, when you look back and you start thinking of stuff like that, we actually really did well, and Lugnan really did well to kind of right above all that, because again, different era. No YouTube, no mobile phones, no other distractions. Like, it was, as I said, your Clare FM and RT on television was your kind of outside source. And as I said, there was plenty of hurling talk and hurling songs and everything on Clare FM at the time.
That's the views there of Michael O'Halloran, one of the Clare defenders, of course, in that famous tight six that won the All-Ireland titles in 1995 and 1997. Well, across from him and beside his brother was Frank Lohan, and just as Michael had made his debut in 1995, so too did Frank. Not a bad way to start off. He's been reflecting on his first outing.
Made my debut in 94 league, so the league was pre-Christmas. So I think we had maybe 3 matches, I think, pre-Christmas. But I came into town, probably started training maybe around September. And then we had a few matches. I think we had 2 matches actually in Six Mile Bridge against Antrim, and I think it might have been Kilkenny actually. And we might have one more match that side of Christmas, and then finished the league the far side of Christmas, and then that championship was my first championship year, 95.
Oh, so not a bad way to start. What was the dynamic like when you come in first?
Gosh, it was all new to me, but it was brilliant. It was like I was playing with players that I would have known from seeing them playing. Let's say Brian was obviously on the panel a few years previous to me, so I would have seen an awful lot of their matches. But the backbone of that team that played in that final were great people, great sports people, and then that year, that dynamic, Ger would have brought in an awful lot of younger guys like myself, and there would have been 7 or 8 of us there brought in, probably around, would have been under 21 at the time, Ali, Fergal Hegarty, Eamon would have been a year or 2, Stephen Mack. That's just to name just a few of them, But great times, great dynamic. And look, Ger was from Shannon, or living in Shannon at the time, Ger Lohan, and would have known Ger growing up. Felt very comfortable going in, but for a young person starting out in their inter-county career was great times.
Yeah, and I know that the likes of Anthony would have spoken before about maybe 95 being that kind of swing stage year for a lot of them, that they had gone through the heartaches of the previous years, and for some of them it was the do or die. Was that ever evident in the way 95 was approached from your perspective?
I'd say Dalo and a number of the guys, Brian, and a number of the guys that have been there and been through maybe 2 months for finals the previous 2 years, 93 and 94, and big beatings. It was a big year, and look, they were the guys that drove everything as well, like James E. Shawnee, all that crew, Liam Doyle, Davey. But you know, for me, it was just my first year, and it was all new, you know, and I was kind of very lucky to get a full league behind, you know, the intercounties. It's just a different game to club game or to colleges. It's just a different game, really, you know. And I got a full league behind, which was great grounding really in the intercounty year. But it wouldn't have felt that way for me, do or die, you know, because you're just starting off and you're hoping that. You know, you're hoping things would progress, but very quickly, I suppose. The first game I started, I didn't start the semi-final against Cork, but the first game I did start was the Munster final, and you know, I do remember in the dressing room before that this was serious, you know, above any other match I would have played in, you know.
And I suppose you were maybe in a bit of a unique position in that you could have Brian at home, probably, you know, settling those nerves or letting you know what to expect. Because I'd imagine even those scenes going in along on the bus that day for a young fella could have been quite daunting at times.
Yeah, I think most things it's about preparation. You know, not just sport, but it's about, look, have you prepared for it? And you know, with the kind of management team that we had. You know, and Colin Flynn and a few others like that, you felt, you know, they let you know what to expect. And you know, we put a lot of emphasis in the league that year. And, you know, each day was about building up and trying to get the best out of yourself for that match, you know. So we were well prepared, there's no doubt, you know. We were well prepared, and it becomes easier when you're well prepared, I think.
Yeah, what was your big standout memory from that game in particular? Was there a moment when you kind of realised, Jesus, this is going to happen?
The final,
the Munster final in particular, I suppose.
Oh, the Munster final. Well, I think it was just beforehand, the kind of, just remembering the dressing room beforehand, the kind of pretty raw emotion of the whole thing, you know, and you know, particularly the older bunch that had been there for 2 previous years, you know, it was probably now or never for that bunch and for the team as collective. You know, if we hadn't won that day, you'd be kind of, even though it was the first day there, in terms of Munster finals, you know, the team was very, very well prepared for it, and just you know, the game kind of just developed and we kind of got into control, and maybe Limerick didn't. Limerick were very, very strong favourites going into it, you know, from the previous years, so that probably stood to our advantage, I think.
Yeah, and from a family perspective, it must have been quite a special moment as well, you know, with yourself and Brian there, and obviously Gus would have soldiered through with a lot of the team from bygone eras as well, so, you know, to break that duck and have that connection must have been quite nice.
Yeah, I think so. You know, look, looking back, it's not something, you know, I would have played last my sport with Brian anyway. It's just kind of become second nature. It's not something more or less, you know. But I'm sure for Dad it was a great day, you know. And yeah, I think just for Clare people, you know. Plenty of people had gone down to Munster finals and down to Turles and came away with tail between the legs sort of thing. So just to get over the line and get over the line convincingly was great, you know.
Yeah, and obviously it was a time that was mad around the county. Like the whole thing, it swept up every corner, didn't it?
I did. Look, 95 was just, look, everyone will remember the summer, you know, for the good weather and all that kind of stuff, you know. But it was just, yeah, it was just brilliant there, you know. Yeah, it was kind of very memorable summer, you know. And the hurling was good too.
Yeah. Do you kind of watch back many of those matches? I know there's been quite a few of them on telly there recently. Or do the games, if you watch them back, do they play out as you remember them on the day itself?
Yeah, no, there's always, like, you just, I suppose, watch last night's game, the final, on RT there, and yeah, I suppose it was quite physical, like looking back on it, I didn't think it was such a physical game, and it's just the game's totally different to what's going ahead now, it's just a different game. You pick up certain things, like I suppose, like Ollie's line ball. Like I didn't have any vivid recollection of that, and probably wasn't a thing that happened every day in that era anyway, So you always pick up. Fergal Hegarty got a brilliant point in the first half as well, So you pick up different things that kind of slip from the memory, And I think you'll always pick up slightly different things from it. But yeah, certainly last night the Ireland final was great to watch. Great to watch again.
Yeah, and the amount of people that I did speak to about Anthony 65 and Eamon's goal and all that, but an awful lot of people reference Frank Lohan's hooks and Frank Lohan's blocks, the aggression and that many kind of tempo that he set at the back was probably the platform from where it was built.
Yeah, look, we had a very good kind of unit, defensive unit, I would have thought at the time, looking back, like Davey was obviously a brilliant goalie, and the full back line would have known, obviously, Holly and Brian. Mike went to school in Shannon, would have been known very well going up through the years. Then the half back line would be a fairly iconic half back line, So yeah, look, we had it was a good defensive unit, and we probably. When you have a tight unit, that kind of it seeped in there for a good number of years,
Yeah. Did it take long for the gravity of what you had achieved to set in?
There was no doubt it was a huge achievement for an awful lot of people, just in the reaction to the whole thing. I think that was quite evident, Yeah, I think it probably didn't settle in until maybe the winter of that year, But there definitely was a huge outpouring by the county, and it did probably as time went on. A lot of people did remember that summer and that the Ireland final, particularly, I suppose. The Munster final was very much a clear thing, I think. For all the hurling and GAA people in the county, that it was a milestone that was met, I think it was. I think it was. A lot of people would have remarked on it, and certainly by that winter it was kind of settling in all right.
That's Frank Lohan there, bringing an end to our two-part series looking back on Clare's All-Ireland final win of 1995. If you want to read more, it's in this week's print edition of the Clare Champion, along with interviews as well with John Conlon and indeed Clare Ladies football manager James Murray. So do pick it up, that's out now. And as I said, if you missed episode 1, it was with the captain Anthony Daly. Well worth a listen to Dalo as always, and that's available on the usual outlets. We're back again next week with another Champion Sports Chat podcast. We'll talk to you then.